What is most surprising is not that the truck's half shaft broke like this, but that the master managed to repair the two broken pieces into three. In the normal way of thinking, such a half shaft would be considered scrap. However, in Pakistan, due to the scarcity of resources and the absence of labor costs, as long as there is a possibility of repair, everything will be disregarded. For a flexible crack like in the half shaft, direct welding would result in inadequate strength and length. However, with the support of lathes and welding machines, these problems can be solved. Before formal processing, the master needs to make thorough preparations. After reassembling the broken half shaft, its length needs to be measured. Because the torn injuries at the break can only be cut off, the length of the cut shaft determines the size of the connecting rod for subsequent joints. The marks at the end of the longest crack are used as reference points for cutting the shaft with a lathe tool. The position of the master's knife cut is chosen before the mark because a regular conical lathe tool cannot maintain evenness. Since the repair shop's master does not have a sharpened cutoff tool, they have to make do with what they have. When the knife cannot reach further, a hand saw is used to continue cutting. To prevent the saw blade from snapping, the remaining connection points are continually tapped by the master. The cut-off piece of shaft is then truly bound for the scrapyard. After cutting a bevel on the cut surface, holes need to be drilled into the shaft with a drill bit. Imagine if welding was done directly, the connected shaft would likely resemble a windmill when rotated. Considering the issue of concentricity after joining, drilling through the center of the shaft is the best approach. This also improves the flexibility and hardness of the shaft after joining. Only with precise hole diameters can the joint pieces bear uniform stress. Afterwards, the other piece of shaft is fixed onto the lathe. As there are also many cracks on the fracture surface of this shaft, this is why the master chose to make the cut at a position closer to the rear. Even if there's a tiny crack on the shaft, the master needs to use a lathe to stop the crack right there. After successfully sawing it off, they cut bevels on the jagged cut surface. All measurements are based on the first shaft processed, even the holes used for joining. If the hole diameters are not consistent, it's like having an unbalanced load, making it easier for the half shaft to fracture again. After drilling holes into all shafts, the original length will definitely be reduced. So, the master needs to measure the length of the cut shafts, which is a math problem everyone has to solve. Subtracting the current length, say 92 centimeters, from the original 100 centimeters, leaving 8 centimeters to compensate for. After marking a scrapped half shaft accordingly, the master needs to cut a section of the shaft. As a connecting piece for the half shaft, this section's length is cut to 13 centimeters, considering the depth of the holes on the shaft. After successfully cutting the connecting piece, they need to shape the protrusion for joining. The length of the protrusion on one side is precisely measured to be 2.5 centimeters, while the outer diameter of the protrusion is based on the hole diameter for precise fitting. After turning, the protrusion's end needs to be chamfered at a 45-degree angle. Then, the connecting piece is assembled with the shaft using a sheet metal hammer. The protrusion must be hammered all the way in to ensure the length of the half shaft remains as intended. Since there's no room for threading, the protrusion can bear the torque if the measurements are accurate. Once overlapped, the half shaft needs to be re-secured to verify the joining length to ensure it can be used safely. After confirming the data accuracy, the joints are welded, utilizing the bevels reserved during machining. The welded areas are smoothed using a lathe to hide the welding marks for a better appearance and a sense of security. Finally, the surface is coated with anti-rust paint for long-lasting protection.